Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the sumptuous hall of the Grand Regency Hotel, crystal chandeliers cast dazzling reflections on the polished marble. Every detail exuded luxury, the gilded columns, the Persian rugs, and the quiet murmur of the impeccably dressed staff. Yet, despite the prestigious setting, a hint of tension hung in the air that morning. Elena Morozova, a Russian woman in her 30s, walked elegantly. Her cashmere coat and confident gait revealed a woman accustomed to commanding respect. She was not just another customer. Founder and CEO of Regency Holdings, the conglomerate that owned the hotel, she knew every corridor, every employee, and every invisible rule that governed this world of luxury. A few meters away, a group of police officers, visibly uncomfortable with her natural authority, were watching Elena with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. One of them, a young white man with an arrogant smile, took a step forward, thinking he could have some fun at this woman's expense. In a shocking and unacceptable gesture, he tried to lift her skirt, as the audience held its breath. But Elena Morozova was no victim. Her piercing gaze froze the man in place. With chilling calm, she addressed a single sentence to him, as sharp as a cleaver. "Do you really think you can disrespect me here?" This moment, intended as a simple provocation to humiliate, would backfire on them in the most unexpected way. Elena not only had the power to protect her dignity. She also possessed the means to transform this humiliation into a public lesson in justice and respect. And what they didn't know yet was that this thoughtless act would set off a chain of events that would forever change their perceptions of power, authority, and Elena Morozova. Hallelujah Grand Regency Hotel. It was a busy morning. Guests were milling around for breakfast, and the staff navigated tables and suitcases with precision. Elena Morozova walked confidently, aware of the attention she was attracting. Her face, thin and elegant, reflected a quiet determination. A few steps away, the young officer who had tried to humiliate her the previous morning stood there, accompanied by two colleagues. His arrogance hadn't diminished. With a sneer, he took a step forward, thinking that this time he could unsettle her. "Well, Elena. We didn't expect to see you here all alone," he said mockingly. Elena didn't flinch. Her gaze, icy but assured, pierced the officer and his two accomplices. "You seem to confuse your ego with power," she replied calmly, her firm voice capturing the attention of everyone in the hall. The young man, irritated by her apparent calm, tried to play his little game once again. He made a move to push her coat aside. But Elena was ready. With a quick movement, she positioned herself to block any attempt at contact. The murmurs of the witnesses turned into a heavy silence. At that moment, Elena took out her phone and scrolled through confidential documents. Passers-by and lobby employees began to whisper, Elena Morozova was no ordinary client. She was the founder and owner of Regency Holdings, the hotel's parent company. The young officer felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The arrogant smile faded, replaced by palpable embarrassment. The colleagues who had been laughing a few seconds earlier froze. Elena, with her impeccable posture and unwavering calm, had just transformed a moment of insolence into a silent but clear warning: she would never allow herself to be humiliated. And in that luxurious hall, as all eyes turned toward her, a simple but formidable lesson took root: underestimating Elena Morozova would be a mistake no one would ever forget. The heavy silence in the lobby of the Grand Regency Hotel seemed to stretch on forever. The young officer, frozen by Elena's determination, no longer knew how to react. His two colleagues cast worried glances, while several customers had stopped, curious to understand what was happening. Elena, still calm, pulled out her phone with almost theatrical precision. With a few quick gestures, she scrolled through official documents and digital photographs. The witnesses' murmurs turned to stunned whispers. "Gentlemen," she said in a clear voice, pointing at her phone. "I am the founder and owner of Regency Holdings. And you are literally in my hotel." The police officers' faces whitened. The young officer who had tried to lift her skirt felt a shiver run down his spine. His colleagues exchanged embarrassed glances, realizing they had underestimated the woman before them. customers surreptitiously took photos and began filming. Tensions in the lobby rose to a fever pitch. What had begun as an attempt at humiliation was now turning against the police in the most spectacular way possible. Elena slowly lowered her phone and stared at the senior officer. "You thought you were playing me. But you fell into your own trap. In this hall, every move, every word is being recorded. And every witness here now knows your arrogance." The police officers, unable to respond, backed away slightly. Embarrassment and fear replaced their usual arrogance. The murmurs of the hotel employees and guests grew louder, amplifying the gravity of the situation. Elena hadn't just exposed their attempted humiliation, she'd turned a disrespectful act into a public lesson. At this precise moment, the hall of the Grand Regency, the dynamics changed. Elena Morozova was no longer just an imposing client. She was a symbol of dignity and discreet power, capable of transforming every act of contempt into a stern warning. The police officers realized that they had just crossed a line they could never erase, and that the rest of their day would be marked by this revelation. Hallelujah! Grand Regency Hotel vibrated with a new tension. The murmurs of customers and staff became more audible, some discreetly taking out their phones to film the scene. The news had already spread from table to table. The woman who had just put the police officers in their place was not just anyone. She was Elena Morozova, the owner of the hotel. The young officer, still frozen, tried to regain his confidence, but with each passing second, his shame grew stronger. His colleagues, once mocking, were now leaning towards him, whispering in low voices, visibly worried by the turn of events. Elena, for her part, showed no signs of nervousness. Every movement was measured, every glance precise. She knew the domino effect was underway. The employees, who had previously hesitated to intervene, now stood straighter, some exchanging knowing smiles with Elena, acknowledging her authority. "You see," Elena said to the police officers, "here, respect is not an option. And it cannot be negotiated with arrogance or rudeness." The murmurs in the lobby transformed into a steady stream of admiring glances and silent but powerful reactions. The customers, witnessing the incident, understood that what they had just witnessed was not just an affront to the police, but a demonstration of courage and dignity in the face of injustice. At that moment, one of the hotel employees, a young concierge named Michael, stepped forward timidly. "Ms. Morozova, would you like me to ask security to handle these gentlemen?" Elena nodded slowly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yes, Michael. And make sure this lesson is well understood. Around here, every action counts." As internal security began to approach the police officers to escort them out of the hotel, Elena turned to the guests and staff, her voice ringing with authority. "Always remember, dignity and respect are not begged for, they are earned. And no one has the right to take them away from you." In the lobby, the domino effect was complete. What had begun as an attempt at humiliation had become a moment of revelation and transformation, not only for the police officers, but for everyone who had witnessed the scene. Elena Morozova had just reminded everyone that real power lies not in arrogance, but in self-control and the ability to command respect without violence. The police officers, now escorted by internal security, tried to hide their embarrassment behind forced postures, but their nervousness was evident. The young officer who had attempted Elena's humiliation felt every glance weighing on him like a silent accusation. Elena Morozova stood motionless, her icy gaze fixed on him. Her voice, calm but sharp, echoed through the hall. "You thought you could act without consequences. You were wrong. Here, your actions will not go unpunished." The officer attempted a forced smile, but it failed. Every customer and employee present now saw the power differential clearly. Elena wasn't shouting or gesticulating, yet she commanded everyone's attention. Michael, the young janitor, approached Elena and whispered, "Ms. Morozova, they are ready to go out." Elena nodded slightly and took a step forward. The police officers instinctively stepped back. "Before you leave," she said, glaring at the young man who had attempted humiliation, "remember this, respect can't be bought, it must be earned. And you've just lost yours for a long time." The customers, silent until then, let out murmurs of approval. Some took photos, others discreetly filmed the scene. Elena, aware of every movement, knew this confrontation would be etched in their memories. As the police officers left the lobby, Elena addressed security. Make sure they don't come back without an official apology. And that this lesson is clearly conveyed to them. Calm was gradually returning to the hall, but the mood had changed. Elena Morozova had just transformed an act of arrogance and insolence into a solemn warning. Anyone who underestimated the strength of their dignity risked bitterly regretting it. Even the hotel staff, impressed by his composure and command of the situation, knew they had just witnessed a lesson in courage and quiet power that would not soon be forgotten. The police officer's departure didn't calm Elena. She knew their arrogance wouldn't disappear simply because they left the lobby. True justice had to follow. With implacable calm, she headed to her office at the top of the hotel, accompanied by Michael, the young concierge, and a few members of her management team. Sitting behind her glass and polished metal desk, Elena dialed the number for the local prosecutor's office. Her voice, calm but determined, explained the incident in detail, giving names, dates, and testimonies from the clients present. Every word was precise, every sentence carefully measured to convey the gravity of the situation. These officers have violated the limits of their authority, and an act of humiliation like this cannot go unpunished. I demand an immediate investigation, she said. A few hours later, the first reactions were felt. Local media had been alerted, and several customers had shared the videos they had taken in the lobby. Social media quickly went into overdrive. The police officer's disrespectful gesture was now being turned against them, amplified by Elena's voice and authority. In the lobby, the employees looked at Elena with a mixture of admiration and pride. They realized that their owner was not only a competent manager, but a woman capable of transforming a moment of provocation into an exemplary lesson in justice. A few days later, the local police confirmed that the officers involved had been suspended pending an official investigation. Elena hadn't sought personal revenge. She simply wanted authority to be respected and disrespectful acts punished. The message was clear to all: in this hotel and in the city, dignity is not a bargain. And Elena Morozova had just shown everyone that justice can be swift and effective, when one knows how to act intelligently and firmly. As the sun set over the Grand Regency Hotel, Elena gazed out into the lobby from her office. She knew this was a victory not just for her, but for everyone who had witnessed her courage and self-control. The humiliation of the police officers had turned into a triumph, and the respect they had lost could never be easily regained. A few days after the incident, Elena Morozova continued to walk the corridors of the Grand Regency Hotel with the same calm assurance that had characterized her from the beginning. But this time, the atmosphere had changed. The employees looked at her with a newfound respect, some exchanging knowing smiles, while the customers who passed her now perceived the quiet power of her authority. The suspended officers were under investigation, and Elena had ensured that their superiors were fully informed of their behavior. She wasn't seeking physical or humiliating revenge. Her revenge was intended to be subtle but final. Every step she took solidified her position and served as a reminder that underestimating someone like her had irreversible consequences. One morning, as she walked past the lobby, Elena noticed guests and staff whispering among themselves. Their gazes lingered on her in admiration. Concierge Michael approached and whispered, "Ms. Morozova, you've completely turned the situation around. Even the new employees now know that you're not to be trifled with." Elena smiled slightly. "I didn't lecture them, Michael. It was their own arrogance. I'm simply showing the consequences." In the weeks that followed, the story spread throughout the city. Videos of the humiliated police officers, interspersed with Elena's explanations for their actions, circulated on social media and in local media. Her calm and strategic approach demonstrated that true power lay not in aggression, but in control, intelligence, and legitimacy. Even the suspended police officers, once arrogant, gradually realized that their behavior had publicly discredited them. Elena didn't need to raise her voice to impose justice. Her position, her composure, and her reputation were enough to transform a humiliation she had suffered into a subtle and resounding revenge. In her office, Elena gazed down at the lobby. Every smile, every respectful glance from the employees, every murmur of recognition from the customers was proof that her strategy was working. The police officer's initial humiliation had backfired, and Elena Morozova's triumph was consolidating, silent but relentless. In the following days, Elena Morozova's name resonated throughout the city. Local media and some blogs specializing in luxury and power reported the incident, Grand Regency Hotel, describing how one woman faced police arrogance with calm and authority. The atmosphere in the hotel had changed radically. Employees, who had once been wary of intervening, now felt protected and encouraged. They realized that their boss didn't just lead by wealth or status, but embodied a true example of courage and dignity. Elena walked through the lobby, observing everyone's subdued reactions. The customers greeted her with palpable respect, some even complimenting her on her firmness and composure. Even the new employees, who had arrived after the incident, now knew that underestimating Elena Morozova was unthinkable. Michael, the young janitor, approached and said, "Madam, you have become a legend here, everyone talks about your calm and composure." Elena smiled slightly. "The legend, Michael, is simply a matter of facts and consistency. Those who observe see the truth." Gradually, this recognition spread beyond the hotel. Guests shared their experience on social media, praising how Elena had transformed a humiliating incident into a lesson in respect and justice. Journalists contacted the hotel for interviews, seeking to understand the philosophy and strength that guided this woman. In her office, Elena contemplated this recognition with calm satisfaction. She knew that her victory was measured not only by the suspension of the officers or the immediate reaction of the employees. It lay in the lasting effect it had produced, inspiring respect, affirming dignity, and reminding everyone that authority based on wisdom and integrity always surpassed arrogance and impulsiveness. And as the sun set over the city, Elena Morozova felt that this recognition was only the beginning of a deeper change, where justice and respect would no longer be mere words, but values embodied by her actions. A few days after the incident, Elena Morozova's story had spread beyond the hotel walls to the entire city. Social media was full of videos and testimonies recounting the police officer's humiliation and Elena's calm and authoritative response. Hashtags featuring her name began to circulate, and several local newspapers planned detailed articles on the confrontation. In the hall of the Grand Regency, Elena watched the scene calmly. The employees greeted her with renewed admiration, and some customers, who had witnessed the incident firsthand, stopped her to express their respect and gratitude. The enthusiastic murmurs and knowing smiles made the atmosphere almost electrifying. Meanwhile, the suspended officers were realizing the magnitude of the incident. Their superiors had received hundreds of calls and messages, and the internal investigation was taking a more severe turn than they had imagined. One of the officers, in a secluded office, looked at the online posts in disbelief. I didn't think it would get this bad," he muttered, his face ashen. Elena, meanwhile, remained in control of the situation. She gave an exclusive interview to a local journalist, calmly explaining the incident and how she had chosen to respond. Her words resonated with intelligence and firmness. Dignity is non-negotiable. Authority should never be used to humiliate. We must all learn to respect others, regardless of their appearance or prejudices. The articles published the next day went viral. Public opinion was unanimous. Elena Morozova embodied courage, self-control, and justice. The once arrogant and self-confident police officers now faced a public humiliation far greater than the one they had attempted to inflict. In the hotel lobby, Michael looked at Elena and said, "Madam, you have transformed what could have been a simple incident into an example that everyone will remember." Elena smiled serenely. "True power, Michael, lies in how we use our actions to inspire and correct. Revenge doesn't require violence, just truth and consistency." The media shock was complete. Elena Morozova was no longer just a hotel owner. She had become a public symbol of justice and dignity, a living reminder that underestimating someone who wields power intelligently could backfire in the most unexpected ways. The incident at the Grand Regency Hotel was no longer just an isolated incident, it had become a living example of courage, self-control, and justice. Elena Morozova, aware of the impact of her actions, began to use this notoriety to establish a lasting legacy within her hotel and her community. Every morning, she walked through the lobby with the same quiet confidence, but this time, employees and customers alike regarded her with absolute respect. New staff members were briefed upon arrival about the incident and Elena's handling of the situation, making the episode a lesson in integrity and dignity. Elena hadn't sought to publicly humiliate the police officers. Her goal was to set a precedent, to show that abuses of power never go unpunished and that respect is earned through intelligence and consistency, not fear. Inspired by Elena's example, the Grand Regency's employees began to adopt more assertive and confident behaviors. Guests, witnessing the change, felt protected and valued. The already prestigious hotel became a symbol of safety and respect, and its reputation grew even stronger. One evening, as the hall was emptying, Michael approached Elena and said, "Madam, you turned this incident into something bigger. You set an example that no one will ever forget." Elena smiled sweetly, her gaze wandering for a moment to the chandelier in the hall. "Legacy, Michael, isn't what you possess materially. It's what you inspire in others. Every action, every choice we make can influence someone, sometimes more than we realize." In the weeks and months that followed, Elena Morozova's story spread beyond the city's borders. She became an example to women and men facing injustice, a symbol of quiet strength and power wielded wisely. Thus, what began as an act of arrogance and insolence on the part of a few police officers turned into a lasting legacy, that of a woman capable of converting humiliation into strength, arrogance into a lesson, and contempt into respect. The Grand Regency Hotel was no longer the same after the incident. The lobby, usually filled with a neutral and impersonal atmosphere, now vibrated with silent respect whenever Elena Morozova appeared there. Customers looked at her with admiration, employees with gratitude and loyalty, and even the media continued to report her story as an example of courage and self-control. Elena sat in her office overlooking the lobby, reflecting on the past few weeks. The humiliation the police officers had attempted to inflict on her had backfired in the most unexpected way. Their arrogance had been exposed, their mistakes magnified, and their lessons seared into the minds of all who witnessed the event. She stood up and walked slowly down the hall. Each step echoed on the polished marble, and all eyes turned toward her. Without raising her voice, Elena stared at the spot where the police officers had tried to unsettle her and said in a clear, firm, and serious voice, "True authority lies not in fear or force, but in the respect one inspires through one's actions and dignity. Those who underestimate the power of intelligence and self-control are likely to regret it." The customers and employees present immediately understood the significance of his words. This lesson was not only for the humiliated police officers, but for all those who believed that arrogance and impunity could triumph over courage and dignity. That evening, as the last guests were leaving the hotel, Michael approached Elena. "Madam, you have transformed a moment of insolence into a symbol that everyone will remember." Elena smiled softly, her eyes shining with controlled serenity. "Michael, it's not the situation itself that creates the symbol, but how we respond to it. Today, we proved that respect and dignity are more powerful than arrogance and fear. And that's what I want to leave behind, a lasting example for those who come after us." The Grand Regency Hotel, and all those who attended it, will forever remember that day when humiliation was transformed into triumph, and when Elena Morozova reminded everyone that true power is never in aggression, but in self-control and silent courage. And so, the story closed on a woman who had transformed a moment of injustice into a timeless lesson, inspiring respect and dignity in all those who were lucky enough to see her in action.